Everybody, welcome. We are back for the final video of the Knowles 24/7 pre-spring offensive inventory. Dare you to say that 5 times fast. I'm here with Kevin. I'm here with Brendan. I'm Trey, and today we're talking about the offensive linemen. Guys, when you think of Florida State over the past 5 or 6 years, good offensive line play, not synonymous with the Knowles. Could this be the year? Been scratching, we've been clawing, we've been scraping to really bad, to average. Is 2023 the year where we say Florida State has a good offensive line? Brendan, is it?
Ooh, I feel like it's kind of like with linebacker last year. We were wondering if it was going to jump from almost like below average to strength over the span of a year. And I think if Tatum Bethune didn't get hurt, that would have been the case for linebackers. I think if FSU has good injury luck this year on the offensive line, like this will be a legitimately good room. And I'm optimistic for a few reasons. One, you bring back a good nucleus of what you had last year. You have to replace Dylan Gibbons, who was probably your best offensive lineman, at least your most consistent. So not necessarily easy to replace him, but everyone else is back. You get Dimitri Emmanuel, who is expected to come back as long as the
Oh,
waiver happens. Oh, is that news? He's expected to come back right now. He's on the roster. He's working out with the team right now. They're optimistic that he will get a 7th-year waiver. If that does happen, then all of a sudden you're talking about an all ACC interior lineman back, and that changes everything, right? But then you also have Robert Scott, who is an all ACC left tackle. If he can get healthy, some of the ankle injuries, foot injuries that have been plaguing him, if that can get eliminated, like you're talking about a high end offensive tackle in the ACC. Darius Washington, Maurice Smith. So you have experienced, battle tested, solid linemen. And you have young guys, Jalen Early, Julian Armella, who are promising. And then I think this is the most important part of the conversation. You bring in a haul once again on the offensive line through the transfer portal. You got, I almost said Josh Byers, Jeremiah Byers. I got it. Jeremiah Byers, Kadre Jones, and Casey Roddick, all guys with at least 1,500 career snaps individually. Uh, High end production, good metrics, versatility along the offensive line. We're going to get into it. But yeah, you all of a sudden have about 8 or 9 deep that you feel really good about. And then you probably have an extra 2 to 4 guys you feel okay about. And that gives you numbers that you have not had in a really, 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 really long time.
didn't even talk about Bless Harris either. He's
Oh my
back. He
God, I
was Florida
forgot
State
about
starter.
him.
He was Florida State starting tackle at the beginning of the year before he got hit with injury, man. So I think this is last year it was like the secondary. Like, what are they going to do with the secondary? What are the combinations going to be? That's still an intriguing storyline on the other side of the ball. But to me, what combination is that offensive line going to be next year? You're bringing so much back, but you added so much experience and talented experience. Byers, people wanted. Ohio State wanted that kid, and Florida State just flat beat them out. Like, it is going to be so interesting what the combinations are. Kevin, what do you think about what they bring back? Where do you think that Florida State could really stand to improve from decent play last year? Do you like what do they need to improve upon to be a good unit?
Yeah, so last year your depth at tackle was the question mark. As soon as Bless Harris went out, you were kind of skating on thin ice there. And then you see Robert Scott go down in the Louisville game, and the offense could not find its footing over the next couple of games with him gone.
Stalled
Wake
out.
Forest figured out that they could just bump a defensive end out wide and get an easy pass rush with only 3 down. And that really stalls an offense if you can get a pass rush with only 3 people. So there are and were some serious question marks at the tackle position. I think you were able to bring in some guys that aren't true tackles. I think Byers is an all ACC level tackle, but I think he's an NFL prospect guard
Yep.
kind of deal. So like, you don't want to put him at tackle because he is that good at guard. But then who do you put at tackle, right? Like, Julian Armella is a little young. Do you want to throw him out there? Is he going to be ready for that? I think Darius Washington can be serviceable at tackle, but he was the guy that you put out against NC State and Wake Forest, and he was the guy that kind of struggled at left tackle. I think Bless Harris being back gives you a little bit of a foundation on that side of the ball. On the right tackle, like there's place to go up, and even if someone beats him out, you have a very solid backup there. But then the left tackle, like if Robert Scott goes down, who do you bring in there? Darius Washington? Well, we saw how that played out. So how you move the pieces around, who's willing to kind of play tackle. I have a feeling Byers came here to try to play guard, but we'll see. I also think that this who slots in at center is a big question.
Yes,
I think Maurice Smith
great point.
struggled a
This
little bit
snapping
against.
important to you.
Oh no, not this again. I'm with you though, Kevin, because when we needed tough yards, Florida State was able to run against talented defensive fronts like Clemson, but you saw multiple times when it was an obvious running down. There were multiple games this year where you can point to where Florida State got out physicaled on the offensive line, and a lot of the production was in spite of Florida State's offensive line. It was the talent of the running backs, the scheming, and a lot of that's not necessarily what Florida State's ones against LSU were pretty good. They just didn't have the championship level depth yet. And I think that lack of depth really hurt them. You saw when a kid like Justin Turntine went in, who did a very commendable job, a guy, but realistically, he was a guy we didn't even know we wanted to give a scholarship in the spring. And he did do commendable, but he still had very serious issues against athletic, twitchy, fast defensive ends.
Yep.
I don't think we see those type of holes this year. So the depth is bolstered. Will the actual overall quality of the play rise by that much? I don't know yet. Brendan, what are your thoughts on some of the things that Kevin was talking about? Like, there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of names. Who do you think? Who's in your immediate kind of you're just like I said, pre-spring offensive inventory? Who's Brendan Sonnone's 5, and where do they line up at right now?
I was thinking as Kevin was talking, who my starting 5 would be, and the way he laid it out, there's a convincing. I don't know who I would pick as the front runner of any position group. That's what I put my money on, because those are Robert Scott. You could say should be the left tackle based on what he's done the last few years, but how's he physically, health wise, right? That's a question mark to ask. And Bless Harris on the other side at right tackle, where is he coming back from an arm injury that ended his season? He was practicing pretty regularly by the end of the year. We mentioned what Darius Washington did in the beginning of the year, but by the end of the year, and he was someone who was hurt at the beginning of the year and in the offseason previously.
Has been throughout his career. Yeah.
When he's been healthy, though, which he had all of 2021, he was serviceable. And by the end of this past year, but throughout some PFF numbers for you guys, ready?
All right,
Miami, 83 PFF grade. Syracuse, 70 PFF grade. Lafayette, 90 PFF grade. Oklahoma, 64.6. He was an average starter to a really good one in the back half of the season. And he can play multiple spots. So do you put him at right tackle? Do you put him as your swing guy who can play all over the place? Who's your center? Is it Maurice Smith? Do you have Casey Roddick learn how to snap the ball after he was an interior lineman at Colorado? Is snapping important to you guys? Where do you put Byers? Like Kev said, he's an NFL upside guy, but do you put him at right tackle or do you put him at right guard? Keandre Jones was a multi-year starter at Auburn. He's going to play guard somewhere. Does he start, though? I don't know. So
it's intriguing, right? If you could, just to narrow the focus.
Okay, all right.
Are there any guys that have a guaranteed locked-in starting spot right now, and if so, how many? Obviously, spring, subject to change, but as of right now, I know that these many guys are definitely going to be the starters for Florida State. And if so, who are they?
If Robert Scott is healthy, he will start. Alex Atkins loves Robert Scott.
So we got one.
Yep, so that's one. I think Dimitri Emmanuel has earned a starting spot, has earned the right to lose a starting spot if he returns. So I think that counts, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
I think he's going to be starting at the end of the day.
Yeah, me too.
So right guard. So that's 2. Other than that, I can't say I'm 100% sure Maurice Smith starts, and he was solid this year. These are good problems to have, by the way, what we're talking about. I know there's a lot of ifs and caveats here, but you're talking about competent, capable bodies with maybe some unknowns that don't make you feel 100% positive, but you feel optimistic about 9 to 10 guys, which is a lot different than it has been.
Yeah, I would add Byers to your list.
I'm sorry, Byers.
Yeah.
You know what?
So I'd say about 3, right? 2.5-ish to 3 guys. So that's half. And then the other end of it, what do you do? Like, what position does Byers lock down? Like, we think it's interior. Might he be the right tackle? When Bless Harris was hurt, but even when he was healthy, there were some kind of physical questions about him being able to deal with like those huge defensive ends moving up a level. Who knows what's going to happen another year removed from that injury? I don't know, man. Such an intriguing group. Kevin, what do you think? Like, do you feel the same way as Brendan? Does your five look a little bit different? Who do you think is the guy returning from last year that is in danger of getting supplanted?
I think you need to find someone that can supplant Mo at center. I think he was good, but I mean at this level, when you're trying to beat the teams you want to beat, you need a 300-pound center,
A people mover, yeah.
And I think that's what puts him in danger of potentially losing his spot. Obviously, the guy at left guard is gone, so who goes there, right? Byers, I think you put Byers at whoever you feel least confident at guard or tackle, like left guard or right tackle. Where is the weakness there? Put Byers. If it's similar, you put him at guard and you hope the tackle works out. But then you can always push him back out as a tackle. I don't know. The depth is there. I'm a little worried about the
fit.
Yeah, like where these guys go, how well they're going to go, because there's a lot of communication that has to happen between offensive linemen, and so moving guys around a lot isn't ideal. So you got to find a spot for these guys. Hopefully, it's a spot they can stay healthy in.
I'm with you. It's a good problem to have as long as you can figure out the right combination, right? The same thing with the running backs and the receivers. You got to figure out the combination because unlike a lot of those other position groups where playing together, getting reps is important, you have to have the offensive line be in concert. The communication these guys need to know how they block stunts and twists and blitzing and things like that. They need to be able to communicate, and you are infusing a lot of new guys into that. So there are some legitimate kinks to work out. Brendan, what do you think about the overall potential of this group, though? Are you encouraged?
Mm-hmm.
Are you worried? I mean, are they going to be good next year?
I'm not particularly worried about anything because you have so many at least competent players now on the offensive line. I think that it protects you from the worst case scenario, which almost happened last year when you had all the injuries you had at that position group early in the year, and you were still able to overcome it. Barely. You were just at a razor's edge. I do have to apologize. I was rambling and not thinking clearly. Jeremiah Byers is the most talented player they have on the offensive line. And
it wasn't that bad of a ramble. As far as like you're like a Brendan ramble, 2 out of 10, bud. I didn't even notice.
I was not able to articulate that I think he is a surefire starter somewhere. And the guy I would put my money on, it's like he is a complete and total badass. He is. I loved his UTEP film. I liked it a lot before I knew FSU was in on him. Once I found out that he was a target, I was excited. Once I found out he was a commitment, very, very excited. He is, to Kev's point earlier, he is a legitimate NFL caliber talent and a potential NFL talent at tackle, a probable NFL talent at guard. So just having that guy there, like as your building block to then figure out the rest, like I think that's a huge luxury. And again, we talk about 8 or 9 guys. We've talked about the same one so far, but like Bryson Estes is someone they like a lot long-term, and he's going into year 3. Like, okay, this is time for you to start kicking and to start pushing. Jalen Early was probably the best freshman offensive lineman by the end of the season in terms of just like having the raw talent show itself and present itself. He didn't lose many one-on-ones late in the year. Julian Armella, I think, is going to be a really good run blocking, either right tackle or if you move him inside guard. Like, I think you're at the point now where you have a 2 deep, and then you might even have some swing players who can help you out beyond it. So I feel confident, Trey. Whether I think it's going to be a good group, TBD. I think it has a chance to be. I would put money on it being. I'll put it this way: it's going to be closer to good than it would be below average this year. I think it'll be an asset for you finally this season, and that's the first time I think we've been able to legitimately say that with a straight face since 2016. It's almost a decade. It's been a while.
Long time. Kevin, if that offensive line play is able to elevate itself, maybe not to good, it's got the potential to be good, but even just at a higher level than it was last year, what are some of the things that you expect to see a little bit more from Mike Norvell and his offense as we wrap this up?
Yeah. So I think first of all, you'll see a higher percentage of third and fourth down conversions. I
That'd
don't
be
think
nice.
those were play calls necessarily, but yeah, I think you're going to see a team that may not necessarily win the Clemsons and the Floridas that you weren't winning last year, but I don't think you're going to lose the NC States and the Wake Forests that you did last year. So like,
Right.
I think you've brought the floor up, which is important, especially in the ACC, where really the challenge is going to be to not lose games rather than winning out. There's
That's a
only
good point.
probably 2 or 3 teams that on a can outpunch you on your schedule next year. And so you just got to not lose. And so that floor being high is important. I don't know if there's really much else they will do. I think you do have a lot of guys that will move. I think that's why I'm a little bit less high on the Keandre Jones take. He's not very mobile right now. He needs
More of a
to
plotter at this point, right?
he needs to get in shape if he wants to be able to pull across the line of scrimmage like counter or get horizontal on outside zone. So I think things like that will kind of shape who kind of gets the first looks and kind of how they want their offensive linemen to be shaped. But I think that for the most part, you're going to see them get better and deeper at the things that they did last year as a unit.
And they were very consistent. Well, no, actually, no, not as much. They were definitely very explosive, right? If they could get the consistency up, like obviously the explosiveness is huge. If they can make that success rate a little bit more, like think about a Mike Norvell offense that's even more efficient than it was last year.
Yeah.
Like add in those 40 to 50-yard plays with a couple less 1-yard runs. Think of those 1-yard runs as 5-yard runs, man, and it's spooky hours, boys. This is I would say that offensive line is still the weakest unit on the offense, but it is by no means bad. And when you combine it with the level of talent that we've been talking about in the previous 4 videos, I feel pretty good about the offensive line, but man, do I feel great about this offense. Stock up. Do you concur?
Bye. I have a question.
Bye.
I have a question I'll present to you guys before we get out of here.
Okay.
Do we think that FSU is going to have to hide any of its units on offense?
Like scheme around them? Is that what you mean by hiding?
Yeah. Like they had to hide the offensive line at times last year. They had to hide tight ends last year. Is there any position group or even player who you're looking at that's going to have to start that you're going to say, we may have to hide him this week? I don't know if there is.
I think against maybe elite pass rushes, you might have to hide the tackles depending on kind of the matchups there. But really outside of that, that's such an easy thing to kind of put a Band-Aid on and kind of move forward when you have so many other tools.
Right, with the tight ends chipping too. I think the only thing that you can't really, and I don't want to say hide because the kid has been serviceable to good sometimes. Maurice Smith in the interior, if you have a very elite one technique, like a very, very talented interior rusher, it is kind of hard. I mean, you can do some double teams, but then with twists, with blitzes, things like that, when you do need that tough yard in some of your close games this year, I don't want to say you're going to have to hide Mo, but if either he can't up his physical presence or they can't find somebody to supplant him, I don't think it's an Achilles heel.
Yeah.
I still expect Florida State to compete for the conference championship. But there could be some times where that short circuits a couple drives.
Care to guess how many sacks Maurice Smith allowed last season?
73.
Close.
72.
Okay.
3?
Oh,
0.
That
Right.
was good.
How many stuffed runs did he allow?
I don't have that number in front of me.
Exactly.
I am going to work on
It's more
something.
than 0.
That was better than it was 2 years ago when PC was stuffing them 5 yards into the backfield. But I do think that narrative is something I'm interested in exploring in the offseason. I think it's a little overblown. The inability to get short yardage successful runs, I don't think was as bad as we discuss as a fan base and media group. So anyways, I'm deterring us from.
At the
Well-
point where you're looking at a top 10 offense by advanced metrics, you're looking for things that are middle of the
We're big
pack
up.
to
That's-
be complaining.
And he's a
about.
good football, and he's a good football player too. So once I said, you're not going to have to hide Maurice Smith if he's your starting center. He's been a solid hand for you. He's been a good player. And if I'm wrong, that would only make it just like everything else I am in life. So if I'm wrong on that, wouldn't be a problem either. But you're not wrong because you've stayed with the Knowles 24/7 YouTube channel. This was our offensive pre-spring inventory. Guess what? We got a whole nother side of the ball to get at you. We'll probably be wearing different outfits this time. But who knows? Maybe we won't. Maybe we're just gonna keep it for good luck's sake. Anyway, I'm Brendan. Nope, that's Brendan. I'm Trey. That's Brendan. That's Kevin. We've been recording a long time. I love you all. Stick to Knowles 24/7 for all the best news, notes, camaraderie, fellowship, and everything. And we love you guys. Go Knowles.